He came disguised, armed, and fast. But before the SEALs even processed the threat, the nurse had already tackled him to the dirt. Nobody spoke. They were still trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Phoenix Chen had been assigned to Naval Special Warfare Training Center Coronado for exactly 6 weeks. At 5 feet 5 inches with jet black hair always secured in a perfect regulation bun and sharp dark eyes that seemed to absorb every detail while revealing nothing in return, she moved through her medical duties with the kind of clinical precision that made her practically invisible to most personnel at the facility. Her nurse practitioner credentials were impeccable, her medical responses were textbook perfect, and her professional demeanor was so consistently neutral that she blended seamlessly into the background of one of America's most elite military training environments. To the SEAL candidates undergoing the brutal basic underwater demolition/SEAL training program, she was simply their assigned medical officer, competent, reliable, and completely unremarkable. The candidates knew her only through formal interactions and medical procedures. Ma'am when they required medical attention, the nurse when they discussed medical appointments among themselves, or Doc Chen in the casual way that exhausted trainees refer to the medical personnel who patched them up after particularly brutal training evolutions. None of them had ever wondered about her background, her previous assignments, or what experiences had shaped her into the unflappable medical professional they encountered during their most challenging moments. She was medical support, nothing more, someone who ensured they remained physically capable of continuing the punishing selection process that would either forge them into Navy SEALs or eliminate them through the unforgiving standards that maintain the extraordinary capabilities of Naval Special Operations Forces. Lieutenant Commander Chen's daily routine was methodical and predictable. She arrived before sunrise to review candidate medical files and training schedules, attended comprehensive safety briefings to understand potential injury risks during the day's evolution, positioned herself strategically during high-risk exercises, and provided immediate medical intervention for everything from minor abrasions to serious injuries that required immediate professional care. Her medical expertise was comprehensive, her emergency response capabilities were excellent, and her ability to handle the unique medical challenges of SEAL training was unquestioned by everyone at Coronado. But she maintained a professional distance that seemed almost impersonal, speaking only when necessary for medical purposes and never engaging in the informal conversations that typically develop between medical staff and the elite warriors they supported. But assumptions can be dangerous, especially when they're made about people whose true capabilities remain carefully hidden behind the most professional medical demeanor. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we discover that the most extraordinary reflexes are often concealed behind the most ordinary professional roles. Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments which country you're watching from today. And if you believe that split-second decisions reveal character that years of observation cannot, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. We're honored to share these remarkable stories with you. Class 249 was conducting advanced small unit tactics training, one of the most demanding phases of SEAL selection that tested candidates' ability to operate as cohesive teams under extreme stress. The training evolution was designed to simulate real-world scenarios where SEAL teams might need to conduct reconnaissance, direct action, or personnel recovery missions in hostile environments. The exercise was taking place at a specialized training facility designed to replicate urban combat environments, complete with multiple buildings, realistic street layouts, and sophisticated scenario control systems that could create combat simulations with exceptional realism. Among the current class of SEAL candidates was Petty Officer 2nd Class Marcus Bull Rodriguez, a former Marine Corps infantry specialist who had served 2 combat deployments before applying for SEAL training. Rodriguez was respected by his fellow candidates for his tactical experience and physical capabilities, but like everyone else, he shared the common assumption that medical personnel operated outside the warrior culture that defined special operations training. Doc Chen knows her medical stuff, Rodriguez had commented to his teammate during their 5th week of training. Professional as hell, but you never get any sense of what she's thinking beyond patient care protocols. Probably the most reserved medical officer I've ever worked with. Petty Officer Jackson, who had served as a Navy hospital corpsman before SEAL training, offered some perspective. Some medical officers just maintain strict professional boundaries, Rodriguez. Doesn't mean they don't understand what we're going through out here. But Rodriguez's observation was accurate. Lieutenant Commander Chen's professional distance was unusual, even for military medical personnel. Most doctors and nurses developed some level of personal rapport with the personnel they supported, but Lieutenant Commander Chen maintained a clinical detachment that seemed almost robotic in its consistency. Lieutenant Commander Chen was positioned at her standard observation point, approximately 50 yards from the primary training area, where she could monitor candidates for signs of injury or medical distress, while remaining ready to respond immediately to any medical emergencies that might arise during the intensive training exercise. The candidates were working through a complex scenario that required coordinated movement, tactical communication, and decision-making under simulated combat stress. Their performance was being evaluated by multiple instructors who assessed everything from individual tactical skills to team coordination and leadership capabilities under pressure. What none of them knew was that the training facility was about to experience a real security breach that would test everyone's capabilities in ways that no simulation could replicate. At approximately 1,430 hours, base security received intelligence indicating that an individual with possible hostile intentions had been identified in the vicinity of the training facility. The threat assessment was incomplete, but initial reports suggested potential for armed confrontation and deliberate interference with military training operations. Security protocols were immediately activated, but the nature of ongoing training operations made it impossible to halt exercises or evacuate personnel without creating chaos that could result in serious injuries to candidates engaged in complex tactical movements. The security response was coordinated but necessarily discreet, designed to identify and neutralize potential threats without disrupting training operations that had taken weeks to organize and execute. Additional security personnel were deployed to strategic positions around the facility, but their presence was carefully concealed to avoid alerting potential threats to defensive preparations. Unfortunately, the threat materialized faster than security forces could effectively respond. At 1,447 hours, an individual wearing civilian maintenance clothing and carrying what appeared to be legitimate work equipment approached the training facility through a service entrance that provided access to utility systems and equipment storage areas. His appearance was completely unremarkable, someone who belonged in the environment and had legitimate reasons for being present during training operations. But his actual intentions were far different from his appearance suggested. The individual had somehow acquired detailed information about the training schedule, facility layout, and security procedures that suggested either inside knowledge or sophisticated reconnaissance capabilities. His goal appeared to be disrupting the training exercise through direct intervention that could result in serious injury to candidates or training personnel. He was armed with a concealed pistol and what appeared to be explosive devices designed to create chaos and confusion that would allow him to inflict maximum damage before security forces could respond effectively. His approach was calculated, purposeful, and designed to exploit the vulnerability created by ongoing training operations. The intruder moved through the facility with obvious familiarity, avoiding security cameras and following routes that minimized his exposure to detection. His knowledge of the facility suggested extensive preparation and possibly assistance from someone with legitimate access to classified information about security procedures and training schedules. At 1,452 hours, he reached the perimeter of the active training area, where Class 249 was conducting their tactical exercise. The candidates were completely focused on their training scenario, following complex movement patterns that required absolute attention to tactical procedures and team coordination. The intruder's plan appeared to involve positioning himself where he could attack multiple candidates simultaneously while they were engaged in training activities that would prevent immediate defensive response. His approach was deliberate and suggested tactical training that exceeded typical civilian capabilities. But he had made one critical miscalculation. He had assumed that the medical personnel observing the training exercise would be non-combatants who would either flee or freeze when confronted with armed violence. This assumption would prove to be catastrophically incorrect. Lieutenant Commander Chen was monitoring the training exercise from her observation position when she noticed movement that didn't match the expected patterns of authorized personnel. Her attention was immediately focused on the individual approaching the training area, and her assessment of his behavior triggered recognition that something was fundamentally wrong. His movement pattern was tactical rather than routine maintenance. His positioning suggested hostile intent rather than legitimate work activities. His body language indicated preparation for aggressive action rather than normal facility operations. Lieutenant Commander Chen's response was immediate and decisive. Instead of calling for security or attempting to alert other personnel, she moved directly toward the threat with a speed and purposefulness that defied everything the SEAL candidates thought they knew about their medical officer. She covered the 50 yards between her observation position and the intruder's location in less than 15 seconds, moving with a tactical approach that was clearly professional rather than instinctive. Her advance was calculated to minimize the intruder's ability to detect her approach while maximizing her tactical advantage when contact was initiated. The intruder was focused on the SEAL candidates and had not noticed Lieutenant Commander Chen's approach until she was less than 10 yards away. When he finally detected her presence, he turned toward her while reaching for his concealed weapon. What happened next took less than 5 seconds, but demonstrated capabilities that none of the personnel at Coronado had suspected their medical officer possessed. Lieutenant Commander Chen covered the final 10 yards with explosive speed, timing her approach to arrive before the intruder could draw his weapon. Her tackle was textbook perfect, a combination of leverage, momentum, and technique that brought the armed individual to the ground with sufficient force to prevent resistance while minimizing risk of serious injury. The intruder hit the dirt hard, his weapon flying clear of his reach, and found himself controlled by submission techniques that prevented any possibility of continued resistance. Lieutenant Commander Chen secured the weapon, checked for additional threats, and then immediately assessed the subdued individual for injuries while maintaining complete control over the situation. Threat neutralized, she reported calmly into her radio. One individual secured, weapon recovered, no injuries to personnel. Request security response for evidence collection and custody transfer. The entire sequence had taken less than 5 seconds. The armed intruder had gone from threatening multiple SEAL candidates to being safely controlled and receiving medical assessment to ensure his well-being despite the forceful nature of his apprehension. The training area was completely silent. 30 SEAL candidates, multiple instructors, and various support personnel stood frozen, staring at a nurse practitioner who had just neutralized an armed threat with techniques that exceeded the tactical capabilities of most military personnel they had ever observed. Rodriguez was the first to find his voice, and his comment reflected the stunned amazement that everyone was experiencing. "Holy shit," he said quietly. "Did anyone else see what just happened?" Jackson stepped forward with obvious respect and amazement. "Ma'am, where did you learn those techniques?" Lieutenant Commander Chen was performing a professional medical assessment of the secured intruder while responding. Previous training included personal security and threat response procedures. But Master Chief Petty Officer Williams, the senior enlisted instructor who had been observing the training exercise, understood that Lieutenant Commander Chen's demonstration had revealed capabilities that were far more sophisticated than routine security training. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," Williams said, "that was professional-level close-quarters combat and restraint technique. What kind of training background do you have?" Lieutenant Commander Chen's answer provided the first hint that her medical credentials might not represent the complete scope of her professional qualifications. "My previous assignments required integration of medical and security capabilities," she replied carefully while continuing her medical assessment of the detained individual. Chief Petty Officer Martinez, one of the instructors who had witnessed the entire incident, approached with obvious curiosity and respect. "Ma'am," Martinez said, "that takedown technique was flawless. You moved like someone with extensive tactical training, not routine self-defense courses." Lieutenant Commander Chen seemed to be weighing how much information to share, understanding that her response to the security threat had revealed capabilities that would inevitably lead to questions about her background and previous experience. "My medical training included specialized programs that addressed security requirements for high-risk assignments," she explained, still maintaining her focus on ensuring the detained individual hadn't sustained any injuries during the apprehension. But Rodriguez, who possessed significant combat experience, recognized that Lieutenant Commander Chen's techniques had exceeded anything available through conventional military medical training programs. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, "I've seen a lot of different tactical training, and what you just did required specialized close-quarters combat instruction. That wasn't basic self-defense." The arrival of base security personnel provided a temporary interruption to the questions about Lieutenant Commander Chen's background, but it was clear that her demonstration of tactical capabilities had fundamentally changed how everyone at the training facility viewed their medical officer. The security team leader, Sergeant First Class Thompson, approached Lieutenant Commander Chen with obvious professional respect. "Ma'am," Thompson said, "your response prevented what could have been a serious security incident. Can you provide a brief description of the threat assessment and apprehension procedures you employed?" Lieutenant Commander Chen's response reflected familiarity with security protocols and threat assessment procedures that exceeded standard medical training. "Individual approached training area with suspicious movement patterns and obvious concealment of weapons," she reported. Tactical assessment indicated immediate threat to training personnel. Response was designed to neutralize threat while minimizing risk of injury to all personnel involved. Sergeant Thompson's follow-up questions revealed growing recognition that Lieutenant Commander Chen possessed security and tactical expertise that was unusual for medical personnel. "Ma'am," Thompson asked, "what training prepared you to conduct tactical threat assessment and armed apprehension procedures?" Lieutenant Commander Chen's reluctance to discuss her background was obvious, but the circumstances made it clear that some explanation was necessary. Previous assignments included security responsibilities that required specialized training in threat recognition and response procedures, she replied. Master Chief Williams, who had been observing the entire interaction, understood that Lieutenant Commander Chen's capabilities represented resources that could enhance SEAL training in ways that had never been available before. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," Williams said, "would you be willing to discuss how your security experience might contribute to our training operations?" Lieutenant Commander Chen considered the request carefully, understanding that her response to the security threat had revealed capabilities that would inevitably change her role at Coronado. "Master Chief," she replied, "if you think my experience could enhance the candidate's training, I'd be willing to share what I learned." Over the following days, Lieutenant Commander Chen worked with the training staff to develop scenarios that integrated medical and security responsibilities. Her experience in threat assessment, close quarters combat, and tactical decision-making created training opportunities that were unprecedented in the SEAL training program. "What Lieutenant Commander Chen brings to our training," Master Chief Williams explained to his staff, "is practical experience in situations where medical personnel must also function as security assets." Her capabilities bridge the gap between medical support and tactical operations. The training scenarios that Lieutenant Commander Chen developed included realistic situations where medical personnel might need to provide care while defending themselves and their patients, security assessments that medical officers should conduct in uncertain environments, and tactical decision-making that balanced medical requirements with security necessities. "The most important thing candidates need to understand," Lieutenant Commander Chen explained to the training staff, "is that in special operations, every team member must be capable of contributing to security, regardless of their primary specialty." Her training scenarios incorporated the kind of tactical complexity that reflected actual operational conditions rather than simplified exercises that failed to prepare candidates for the psychological and tactical realities of real-world missions. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, who was responsible for tactical training coordination, was particularly influenced by Lieutenant Commander Chen's approach to developing realistic combat scenarios. "Lieutenant Commander Chen's experience has completely changed how we approach integrated training," Santos explained. "She's shown us that effective special operations training requires understanding how different specialties must work together under pressure, not just memorizing separate skill sets." Specialist James Thompson, one of the candidates participating in the enhanced training exercises, recognized the value of learning from someone who had actually applied medical skills in tactical situations. "Learning from Lieutenant Commander Chen is different from any other military training," Thompson said. "She's not just teaching us procedures. She's sharing what actually works when you have to provide medical care while dealing with active threats." The training exercises that incorporated Lieutenant Commander Chen's experience were more challenging, more realistic, and more effective at preparing SEAL candidates for the psychological realities of combat operations than any previous training programs available at Coronado. Lieutenant Colonel David Park, who commanded one of the training battalions, observed significant improvements in candidates' ability to integrate medical and tactical responsibilities. The training scenarios that Lieutenant Commander Chen developed have enhanced our candidates' overall operational capabilities in ways that conventional training never achieved, Park reported. Her practical experience provides insights that transform training from academic exercise to realistic preparation for multidimensional operational challenges. But Lieutenant Commander Chen's most significant contribution was demonstrating that effective special operations training requires understanding how different capabilities must be integrated rather than compartmentalized. Her willingness to share her tactical experience with SEAL candidates reflected the kind of comprehensive approach to capability development that enhances overall team effectiveness. Rodriguez, who had initially questioned Lieutenant Commander Chen's reserved demeanor, became one of her most dedicated students. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, "your approach to integrating medical and tactical capabilities has completely changed how I think about team security. You've shown us that effective operators must be prepared for any role the mission requires." Jackson, who had previous medical experience, was particularly influenced by Lieutenant Commander Chen's perspective on comprehensive capability development. "Ma'am," Jackson said, "your experience has taught me that medical personnel aren't just support assets. We're full team members whose capabilities can enhance rather than limit tactical effectiveness." The enhanced training programs that Lieutenant Commander Chen developed were eventually adopted throughout naval special warfare, establishing new standards for integrated medical tactical capability that enhanced the overall effectiveness of SEAL teams. Her methods influenced military training approaches and enhanced the comprehensive capabilities of special operations personnel across multiple commands. But perhaps Lieutenant Commander Chen's greatest contribution was demonstrating that true operational excellence requires readiness to fulfill any role that mission success demands, regardless of official job descriptions or expected responsibilities. Her example reminded everyone that in special operations, as in life, the most valuable people are often those whose true capabilities remain carefully hidden until circumstances demand their complete revelation. The story of Lieutenant Commander Chen's transformation from quiet medical officer to recognized tactical expert became legendary at Coronado, shared with new classes as an example of how extraordinary capabilities often remain hidden until circumstances demand their revelation. The most important lesson you can learn here, instructors would tell new candidates, is that in special operations, everyone must be prepared to contribute to mission success in whatever way is necessary. The person providing medical support might be someone whose tactical capabilities exceed your own. 6 months after the Saboteur incident, Lieutenant Commander Chen was formally recognized by Naval Special Warfare Command for her contributions to both facility security and training enhancement. But more importantly, she had established training programs that continued to benefit SEAL teams long after her direct involvement in their development. Lieutenant Commander Chen's legacy, explained Captain Rodriguez, the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Training Center, isn't just her exceptional response to a security threat. It's her continued commitment to enhancing the comprehensive capabilities of special operations personnel through integrated training that reflects real-world operational requirements. Lieutenant Commander Chen's response to the formal recognition reflected the mindset that had characterized her entire approach to military service. "The most important thing I can do," she said, "is help prepare SEAL candidates for the reality that special operations require every team member to be capable of contributing to mission success in multiple ways. If my experience can help them develop more comprehensive capabilities, then sharing that experience is the most valuable contribution I can make." The training programs that Lieutenant Commander Chen developed were eventually adopted by multiple special operations commands, enhancing the integrated tactical medical training capabilities of elite military personnel throughout the United States military. Her integration of tactical and medical expertise with modern training methodologies established new standards for comprehensive capability development that enhanced overall team effectiveness. Years later, when Lieutenant Commander Chen transitioned to other assignments, Her legacy lived on in the enhanced training programs she had developed and in the understanding that true military excellence requires preparation for any challenge that mission success might demand. The tackle that had brought down an armed intruder became a symbol of the hidden capabilities that military professionals carry with them throughout their careers, waiting for the moment when circumstances demand their revelation and application. Her story reminded everyone at Coronado that assumptions about people's capabilities can be dangerous, and that the most valuable contributions often come from personnel whose true qualifications remain carefully concealed behind current professional roles until extraordinary circumstances demand their complete revelation. The moment when she had tackled the armed saboteur lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, reminding everyone that extraordinary capabilities often await revelation through circumstances that no one can predict or prepare for. The moment when every SEAL candidate had stood silent, trying to process what they had witnessed, they were recognizing not just unexpected tactical capability, but a broader understanding of how military excellence often remains hidden until moments of crisis reveal the true depth of professional preparation and capability. Lieutenant Commander Chen's willingness to share her tactical expertise when it could benefit SEAL training demonstrated that true military service continues in whatever form best serves the mission. Her transformation from invisible medical support to recognized tactical expert demonstrated that extraordinary capabilities often remain hidden until circumstances provide opportunities for their revelation and application. But perhaps most importantly, her example reminded everyone that the people we take for granted may be the ones whose experience can most significantly contribute to developing the next generation of elite warriors. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever witnessed someone in a support role demonstrate capabilities that completely changed your understanding of their background and training? Have you encountered professionals whose true qualifications were revealed only during moments of crisis or unexpected challenge? Tell us in the comments about the times when you realized that the people around you possessed extraordinary capabilities that remained hidden until circumstances demanded their revelation. And if you believe that split-second decisions reveal character that years of observation cannot, hit that subscribe button to support our channel. Every story reminds us that extraordinary capabilities often remain concealed behind ordinary professional roles, and that the people we take for granted may be the ones whose complete qualifications exceed our understanding until moments of crisis reveal their true depth of preparation and expertise. We'll see you in the next story where we'll discover another incredible tale of hidden capabilities and the unexpected moments when extraordinary backgrounds are revealed through circumstances that change everything we thought we knew about the people serving alongside us.